at the Catholic world's response to um, the Protestant Reformation. Okay. Now, the first thing we need to kind of talk about terminology here. Okay. In this class, we're going to use the term Counter Reformation. Okay. Technically, though, um, really this kind of starts 1490, and the term that better describes it starting in 1490 is the Catholic Reformation. Um, that basically we see kind of 1490, even before Martin Luther. The Catholic Church kind of begins to reform. They begin to fire some priests that were really corrupt. Um, but really we see they don't really take action until kind of the Protestant Reformation. Okay, and that's why we're going to use the term Counter Reformation, because really we don't really see them kick off and really begin to make a lot of changes until Martin Luther carries out the Protestant Reformation. Okay, so it's really what the church does is going to be in response to Martin Luther, even though technically they do begin to address some issues they have even before the Protestant Reformation. Okay, so don't let that confuse you. Okay, this class we're going to really just use the term Counter Reformation and focus on their response to Martin Luther. Okay. The Catholic Church, okay, we already said they are going to fire some corrupt priests. We're going to see they're going to ban the reading of Martin Luther's 95 Thesis and his other works. Okay, we actually see many of those seized and destroyed, and then that just meant the printing moved to a different town or moved underground. Okay, and they excommunicated Martin Luther. They declared him a heretic. Okay. But that's kind of really all they do. Okay, this comes down to the Council of Trent. The Council of Trent will actually be a series of meetings, a series of councils between the years 1545 to 1563. Okay, and this doesn't really change anything. Okay, this basically reaffirms all tenets that the Catholic Church believe in. They basically say, hey, look, let's meet, let's talk about this. Do we still believe in this stance? Do we still take this stance? Yes, we do. So basically, you just see, hey, look, we're Catholic. This is what we believe. This is why we believe it. Okay, we are the beholders of tradition. Okay, and you see, they really can't make any change. Okay, they can't get rid of the sanctification, right? They trace their lineage back to St. Peter. The minute they get rid of that aspect of Catholicism is the minute that they kind of lose their claim to legitimacy. Okay. They do declare that the Bible and apostolic teachings were of equal authority, right? So they do say, hey, look, we are the beholders of tradition, and tradition is important, but tradition is just as important as the Bible. But keep in mind, the Bible is still in Latin. Prayers and the singing in the church is still done in Latin. Okay, so you're not really seeing any change. They keep indulgences. Okay, that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the Protestant Reformation. To this day, the Catholic Church, they still have indulgences. They're really no longer being sold. Okay, so that's kind of an abuse that you see that in the 1500s, they're still selling them, but they're kind of ramping that down, firing people that are using that money to enrich themselves and not benefit Catholicism. Today, you see they don't really do that anymore. Today, it's more acts of service or prayers, right? We said a lot of the indulgence today is the praying of the Rosary. Okay. So you do see them do a lot of fire a lot of priests that were corrupt and kind of abusing their power, right? For this class, probably one of the most important things, though, that comes out of the Counter Reformation is the formation of the Jesuits. Okay, this is going to be a holy order of monks within the Catholic Church. Keeps in mind that the Holy Orders is one of their sacraments. Everyone knows them as the Jesuits. Their real name is the Society of Jesus. Okay, and this is actually kind of founded outside of the Catholic Church. This wasn't started by the Pope or anyone. It's started by this guy by the name of Ignatius of Loyola, which you see here. The Pope will later make him a saint for what he does, and the Pope is going to like them so much that by 1540 he's actually going to declare them an official order of the Catholic Church. Okay. This is how one historian describes them. with regards to the Jesuits. It's a company of soldiers sworn to defend the faith. Their weapons were not to be bullets and spears, but eloquence, persuasion, and instruction in the right doctrines. Okay, that's really kind of how I want you to imagine the Jesuits. Okay, they're kind of this very militarized order. They're kind of these warrior monks who aren't going out and fighting, but they are willing to die to spread Catholicism. Okay, individuality was suppressed. Okay, soldiers basically they had to be obedient like a soldier. They had to listen to all the orders of the hierarchy of the Catholics. Okay, you had a head Jesuit who was elected by fellow Jesuits who served for life, who's very autocratic. Okay, you had to listen to what he said. He earned the nickname the Black Pope because they were known to wear these black monk garbs. Okay. You took vows of poverty, chastity, and complete obedience to the order. Okay, it's what another historian describes the Jesuits as the shock troops against Protestantism. Okay, these are going to be the guys that go and spread Catholicism. It is the Jesuits and some religious orders that keep Poland Catholic, despite modern day Poland being right next to Germany, which is the cultural hearth of Protestantism. They're really the ones that go through and kind of preach and talk to these Polish nobles and keep it heavily Catholic. They attempt to spread it to India, where they do not really have much success. They have a little more success in China, not as much, due to the religious fluidity of Chinese beliefs, but they are extremely successful in Spanish America. Okay, to this day, you look at Central and South America are still heavily Catholic states, and that is a large part because you have these Jesuit missionaries that are going out there to spread the word of Jesus, and at times they're risking their life. Later, we're going to look at how some of these guys are actually going to be persecuted and killed by the Japanese. Okay, so that's really kind of what these historians mean by this kind of militarized order. It's structured like a military, and they're going out and risking their lives to spread Catholicism and the Word of God. Okay, so you see here they're going to go out and live amongst the natives. They're going to try to learn the natives' language or use a translator, and they're going to teach them about Catholicism, and you're going to see they're going to baptize and convert thousands and thousands upon natives, right? So if we're studying world history and not really taking a European focus, kind of the most important thing that comes out of the Counter Reformation is the formation of the Jesuits, because they're going to be the ones that are largely responsible for taking Catholicism and spreading it across the globe. Okay, so very, very important here. The Jesuits will come up again. The other religious order that you should be familiar with are the Franciscans. Okay, you might see them as well come up in like a DBQ or stuff. Okay, so definitely be familiar with those. Okay, the Franciscans are going to date back much earlier to 1209, but be familiar with those two religious groups of monks who were missionaries who spread the faith. Okay, the last thing that we need to know about with regards to the Counter-Reformation here is the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, sometimes you just seen this referred to as the Inquisition. This predates the Protestant Reformation. Okay, this dates back to 1478 in Spain. This goes back to the Reconquista. Okay, what is this? This is going to be the Spanish government under King Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain that are putting people on trial for heresy. They're basically carrying out the church's ruling that various groups are heretics for not being Catholic. So they're going to target Jews and Muslims, and they're going to burn them at the stake and torture them and execute them in other ways. The Spanish Inquisition is infamous for its various torture devices that would basically be used to get people to admit that they are heretics. Okay, and basically the Spanish Inquisition will be used to keep Spain Catholic. Okay. Again, religious nationalism seems to be the thing in this time period. Spanish national identity is tied to the fact that they're Catholic. After 1517, it's not just applied to Jews and Muslims, it's now applied to Protestants. And we see It is extremely successful here because it keeps Protestantism out of the Iberian Peninsula. To this day, Spain is still a heavily Catholic country, largely due to the Spanish Inquisition and the efforts made by the Catholic Church with the Counter Reformation.